we have fun with these video presentations and interviews and so on, and we're going to have some fun with this one. But they do have a serious purpose, and that's to get you to read our books. Obviously, we can't force you or even coerce you, although we might try. Let's see what happens here. But all we can really do is write them well, find ways of letting you know they're available, and then talk persuasively about how good they are and how much we think you'll enjoy them. So today I'm talking about my two comedy novels in the Mark Fairley Mysteries series, The Accidental Spurt and Killing O'Carolan. Now, yes, I said comedy novels, and that's because they're satire and they're funny. As with most satire, they are rooted in a seemingly serious premise, but one that's rife with comic possibilities. Here's Mark Fairley, a man probably in his late 40s or early 50s. He's suddenly fired from his cushy white-collar job in Greensboro when his company downsizes. He learns about his firing in an email from his boss who dislikes confrontation, and there's a comic seed right there. He gets a severance package, but Mark has a wife, 3 kids in expensive colleges, a mortgage, very little savings, an aging car, although he's not making payments on it, fortunately, but the repair bills are mounting up, and he's got no prospects. He's sent out over 75 resumes and gotten 0 responses. To make ends meet, he accepts temporary consulting gigs, which seem harmless enough at first, but which turn into undercover operations with all kinds of opportunities for hilarious mayhem. Mark Fairley becomes a reluctant, undercover amateur detective, and the fun begins. Now, that's the overall premise for the series. Of course, each of the books has its own specific premise, and we can find those on the cover blurbs. Here's the one for The Accidental Spurt. Downsized out of work, Mark Fairley lands a temporary consulting gig writing the history of troubled energy drink company Spur Nutritionals while he looks for a real job, only to find himself investigating the company president's death in a suspicious explosion and the chairman's odd behavior after a freak accident on the bottling line as shadowy international forces vying for control of the multi-billion-dollar energy drink industry vow to stop at nothing to keep the game-changing truth hidden. Can Mark solve the treacherous maze of homicide, inept corporate espionage, dysfunctional family intrigue, and hilarious intercultural missteps without becoming the next unexplained casualty? And will he ever find a real job? That's The Accidental Spurt. Here's the one for Killing O'Carolan. Someone is poisoning poets in Greensboro, and there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it. Reluctant amateur detective Mark Fairley goes undercover in the arts community to learn whose muse has run amok and restore poetic justice to the city. All well and good until he discovers the future of this modern American town may hinge on the fate of a legendary 18th century blind Irish musician and a hitman with a chip on his shoulder. Well, hard to decide which one to read first, right? I think you better just go ahead and get both. But maybe you're one of those people who needs a little more. Obviously, I can't reveal the plots of these novels, but I can do 2 things. I can assure you that the crimes involved are absurd and funny, and I can read a few short passages to demonstrate the writing that you'll enjoy. So let's start with the crimes. Here's the list. Now, some seem traditional for crime novels and somewhat commonplace, but even those are committed in surprisingly absurd ways. Involuntary manslaughter, theft of a firearm, unlawful discharge of a firearm, industrial espionage, poisoning, vandalism, mugging, kidnapping, trespassing, lying, plagiarism, speeding, parking by a fire hydrant, faking a Japanese accent, faking an Irish accent, stupidity, inappropriate use of duct tape, and more. Well, for an example of the writing now, let's look in on the world of Adam Spur. Adam's a chemistry professor at the prestigious Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, and one of the main characters in the accidental spurt. Now, typifying the absurdity of the environment there, some Duke students are holding one of a never-ending series of protest demonstrations near his office on the campus. Here's a snippet from the newspaper account. Duke University officials say student protesters are occupying a reception area near the school president's office for a fourth day. School spokesperson Randall McCrae said the protesters were still sitting in near President Arthur Willoughby's office in the iconic Allen Building, which houses the school's administrative functions and which is closed for a third day. Officials say 10 students are involved in the sit-in out of a total student population of about 15,000. The students want the school to abandon its traditional Duke blue school color for something less offensive, or alternatively, they want at least 2 other colors added in order to promote diversity and inclusiveness. Sophomore Miranda Mellencamp, a spokesperson for the protesters, told reporters at a hastily called press conference, "We object to blue because one color all by itself is not inclusive, and that might offend someone, especially anyone who doesn't like blue. Also, blue is traditionally associated with sadness, and we don't want anybody to feel sad or less than because of it being forced upon them against their will. On that score, we are pro-choice. Although many people think blue is a soothing color, it represents bad luck, pain, and mourning in China and India, and we don't want to offend any of our Chinese or Indian brothers or sisters. Also, blue, albeit a different shade, is the color used by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and we hate them. Furthermore, we think Blue Suede Shoes by Elvis Presley is a stupid song." Asked what other colors might be added if blue is retained, Ms. Mellencamp said the protesters will solicit recommendations from the whole student body and then hold a vote. "It should be determined by a fair and democratic process," she said, "but we favor magenta and lime green at this time and maybe off-white for reasons we will make clear as soon as we reach agreement on them among ourselves. Personally, I like magenta, and I'm the leader. In addition, we want a $15 minimum wage for all student protesters." The students say their sit-in will continue until their demands are met. Duke officials say they'll continue to negotiate with students only after they leave voluntarily. "Or we could just expel each and every one of the little punks and then go clean house in the admissions department," said President Willoughby, who asked not to be quoted. In Killing O'Carolan, you're probably wondering who the O'Carolan character is. Well, there's 2 actually. They're both in a musical comedy that's being produced by the Gate City Playhouse, and that's Greensboro's version of a community theater. The play is about the fictitious son of Turlough O'Carolan, who was a real person. He was the legendary blind itinerant harpist of Ireland in the 18th century, and he wrote some beautiful music that we still enjoy today. His son, his fictitious son, born in December, was of course named Christmas O'Carolan. And the title of the production is the Christmas O'Carolan Songbook, Volume 1. And of course, it's not about Christmas carols at all. Well, ominous things are happening at the Playhouse. Falling sandbags, narrowly missing the actors, people falling off the stage, tumbling down the back stairs. It's as if somebody wants the play not to go on. A problem Mark Fairley has to get to the bottom of without getting sandbagged himself. In the play, the Irish of the 18th century are characterized by 3 things: free-flowing alcohol, a love of potatoes, and perpetual sadness. Christmas O'Carolan's ambition is to enter and win the annual All-Ireland Sad Song Competition, but he's afraid he'll be no match for his famous father, who's won it several times. Let's learn a little bit more about the contest. Each year from about 1650 until it petered out in the mid-19th century, the annual All-Ireland Sad Song Competition was held to see who could write the saddest Irish songs. Anyone could enter as long as they were Irish and could prove it. Merely being sad was in itself not a qualifier. Because the contest was not sponsored by the government, the organizers could not afford gold and silver for trophies. They could afford a pewter, and the top prize was the pewter potato. It was awarded by a panel of 6 judges, picked at random from among the townsfolk. They listened to songs performed by the composers or stand-ins for those who could not sing or play an instrument or weren't sober enough to do so, in a local pub where drink flowed freely. This was to make it of no use for contestants to try to bribe the judges with alcohol. Often a particular song would be heard more than once during the competition, which lasted about a week, either because the judges wanted to hear it again or because no one noticed that it had been performed already. Points were given to songs based on sincerity, lyrics fitting or nearly fitting the meter of the music, intelligibility, does the song make any sense? Often a source of contention among the judges, especially near the end of the week, and sadness. Does it bring a tear to the eye other than for poor musicianship or an overdramatic presentation? Although it was the top prize, the pewter potato was actually for second place. The organizers felt a first place prize should not be awarded because no matter how sad the winner, we believe there is an even sadder song still out there somewhere that, sadly, has not yet been heard. Third place, fourth place, and honorable mention were awarded the pewter barley stalk, the pewter rye stalk, and the pewter cow pie, respectively. The song judged the least sad of all the entries was awarded the pewter turkey. In 1739, Christmas's song, Nevermore, won first prize in the newly established So Sad It Makes You Laugh category and was awarded the pewter funny bone. Well, moving right along. Early in the book, Mark gets an invitation to attend an evening at the local comedy club with his wife, Emily. The invitation is from Dylan Vivaldi. He's a mover and shaker in the Greensboro business and arts community and owner of the club. Here are Mark and Emily as they arrive. We arrived at the comedy club on Spring Garden Road about 7:45. It turns out it's the Comedy Club, spelled with K's turned upside down and backwards and slightly askew, all to say, hey, we're terribly zany, madcap, and wacky in here. Like some kindergarten daycare place that turns the R's, S's, and E's around on its sign to make it childlike and cute, or substitutes Z's for S's as in kids, K-I-D-Z. The now bankrupt chain store Toys R Us went even further, substituting a skewed, cartoony backward letter for a whole word, and never mind how confusing that must be to a 4-year-old who's just learning to read. I'm convinced that in the same way trailer parks cause tornadoes, cutesy kindergarten daycare signs cause dyslexia. I wanted us to walk backwards into the place, but Emily refused. Well, maybe we should cry at the good jokes instead of laugh, I said. Get hold of yourself or I'm not going in there with you. I gave our names to the doorman, and after finding us on his list, he ushered us in. It was dark, but when my eyes adjusted, I spotted Vivaldi talking to the bartender. There you are, he said, bounding over. Your timing's perfect. The show starts at 8. Let's get you both set up with something to drink and some munchies, Vivaldi said, and you could sit at that table for 2 in the middle of the room. I'll be here and there, managing. Feel free to get refills. Emily got a glass of red wine. Monet, I think. Or is it Merlot? I get them confused. I got a draft Miller Lite. Well, I hope you've enjoyed these past few minutes and are now convinced that these 2 novels should be on your reading list. Obviously, I think they should be. If you're not convinced, I'm afraid I'm going to have to resort to some sort of coercion. And remember, I warned you, and here it is. Just kidding. Thanks for watching, and so long for now.